This episode of Twin Cities Trekkies is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor before, let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that help you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership required. They'll also help you to distribute your podcast so it can be heard on many different platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's all you need in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 34 of Twin Cities Trekkies. I am Wes.
And I'm Kenzie.
Oh, first of all, Happy New Year, everyone. It's 2022 now.
Doesn't feel like a real year.
Yeah, I know. It's been crazy. That's at least the first few weeks of this year. We've had a lot of delays and cancellations due to the Omicron variant of COVID-19. So there are a few things that, have been delayed, postponed, or gone virtual. Some things in Hollywood, for example, the Critics' Choice Awards has been delayed to March because of the Omicron variant. It impacts one of the shows I watch, actually. That's why I'm mentioning it. Riverdale on the CW. That's got delayed 2 weeks because of that. So it's going to be premiering in mid-March rather than the beginning of March because it would be on that same night. So it's simulcast, I guess, on the CW and TBS. So other things have been delayed or postponed. Sundance Film Festival in Utah went virtual again. It has gone virtual again. It was supposed to be in person, a hybrid model, but then Omicron hit and they decided to go,
At least that it's taught us in these prior years is that we can go virtual really quickly. So at least it's not like painful. Like a lot of things don't have to cancel. They just can transition pretty easily to a virtual setting. And I feel like that's been a nice thing to see, like how quickly people can decide that and be like, virtual's fine, and people don't have to worry about losing out on that experience.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So, some other things have been postponed indefinitely. Unfortunately, one of them is the Grammy Awards, which were supposed to air at the end of January on CBS. That has been delayed because of the pandemic, because of the Omicron variant has actually really ravaged Southern California, from what I understand. So, I mean, it's actually the entire country. Don't get me wrong. It's high infection rates all around the country. Like, surprisingly, Minnesota is actually near the bottom of the list in terms of how much cases per 100,000 people. Surprisingly, you hear all the doom and gloom about COVID right now, but because of the Omicron variant, but Minnesota is actually near the top in the 42nd out of 50 states. So, as opposed to states like California or New York, where you got a more bigger population. That's why their infection rates are higher than us. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, all you can do is try to be really adaptable. I think that's the only thing. It feels like in some places it's been a little too late for some of this because of how fast that it's moving. But for places that can react to it quickly, I feel like there's a good chance that a lot of people will come out of this mostly unscathed. So as long as we have a quick reaction time, which it seems like in the Star Trek community, a lot of things going on will be like, all right, we're doing virtual, keep it easy for everybody, not have to worry about it. No backlash then.
Yeah, just don't do what South Park did. Just don't do it. Because if South Park has 2 COVID pandemic specials on Paramount Plus, when COVID came back to South Park after being defeated after 30 years down the road, COVID came back and everyone went into a huge panic. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't panic.
Yeah, don't panic. That's what our lovely president Joe Biden has said. It's a time to be concerned but not panic. Don't panic buy. Don't Don't do any of the crazy things that happened in March of 2020. Don't do that. No. But all right, we digress. Let's get back to what we're talking. But anyway, the topic of today's episode will be "Don't I Know You from Somewhere?" which is Star Trek actors in other roles that we've seen them elsewhere. Granted, I've watched a lot more television and film, and I see Star Trek actors all the time in other things. I'm going like, don't I know you from Star Trek?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and I when I watch these things, like or heck, even other Star Trek episodes, for example, like other guest stars appeared in other episodes of Star Trek. I'm going like, he was that character in that episode. I say that to myself all the time.
Broken up into like two parts of like characters who have appeared in multiple roles, where they show up as another character, and you're like, hey, you played a different character in another episode. Yeah. And then like people outside of the Star Trek universe, and it's like, hey, I know that person.
Yeah, totally. So to get in touch with us, it is simple. Send us an email at tctrekkiespodcast@gmail.com. Send us an email that way, with your feedback or any feedback at all for our podcast or anything like that, stuff like that. And you have any episode suggestions on the road for us, that is perfectly fine. We'll definitely give you a credit by saying like, hey, shout out to this person for giving us this topic, that kind of thing, and that kind of thing, We are also available on Facebook and Instagram. The handle is TC Trekkies Pod for both social media platforms. And, I'm very active on our Instagram page and stuff like that. Not so much the Facebook one, but that's okay. Because
Facebook is becoming a very outdated way to interact with people. Unless they're your friends and family, then it's very different.
Yeah, then it's very different. Yes. So I'm very active with our Instagram account, and stuff like that, showing like that. So, yes. So, and then to send us voice messages, you can simply do that by going to anchor.fm/Twin Cities Trekkies. Hit that little message button and enable your microphones to start recording. But like we said in the past, if you press that button, don't record, and you start recording what you want to say, and we don't hear you, we're going to have to like interpret what you're saying somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, we're somehow, because we're an audio podcast, but granted, if we did like a video one, just for like, if you did want to record like your voice for a message, and you did like start talking and nothing's coming out, we could probably be like Master Science 3000, Mystery Science Theater 3000, and just interpret what you're saying. Like, okay, they're saying this.
Yeah, leave us a puzzle to figure out, and we'll try to use some sort of decoder for it. Give us a key, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll have like a little decoder pin and say, be sure to drink your Ovaltine. Drink your Ovaltine. Yeah. So, but keep in mind that any feedback you do leave, vocal or written, may be featured in a future episode of this podcast. Okay. First, we're going to talk about, there is some news lately. First of all, in case you are not aware, Discovery Season 4 is on mid-season hiatus. This is actually not new for the show. This happened back in 2017 to 18 during the first season. So I don't know. People were just upset. I mean, when they announced that, granted, it was a sudden announcement. Don't get me wrong. It was very, very sudden.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like the week before the mid-season finale was going to air. They put a social media post saying that, okay, Discovery Season 4 is going to be on hiatus until February 10th. And it will return at that time, which will be the first new episode of 2022. So, and stuff like that. Well, the reason why they're doing that is because Star Trek Prodigy has now aired more episodes. 2 more have been released. There'll be 3 more before Discovery comes back. Number 6 is amazing. I'm just going to say that right now. Called Kobayashi, if you haven't seen it. And I highly recommend you do, Kenzie, if you haven't seen it.
I
Uh,
have not.
it's it's an amazing episode, and it's awesome. I mean, you're gonna hear some archival footage, audio from legendary actors of Star Trek. So that episode is absolutely my favorite one so far of Prodigy. Is Kobayashi, the one that came back after its mid-season break, first mid-season break, I should say. So, so it was pretty good and stuff like that. It was actually my favorite one so far.
To
Prodigy.
write that
So
down.
that is why Discovery is on hiatus until February 10th. Now, question: is it going to affect Picard? We don't know. The Star Trek Day trailer had said February 2022 for the premiere of season 2 of Picard. Well, I have seen rumors. I just treat it as a rumor. Yellow alert. That Picard season 2 may premiere on a different day in February. I mean, because most of Star Trek shows have aired on Thursday since season 2 of Discovery. Because the first season of Discovery, when it was on All Access, it aired on Sunday nights, and it had a Pacific time at 7:30 in the evening. So, but then after season 2, it was going to be like midnight Eastern time or something like that, Eastern Pacific, midnight Pacific. So, so that's what it's been that way ever since. For season 2, season 3 of Discovery, season 1 of Picard, and Prodigy, and Lower Decks. So that's what it's been like since Discovery's second season. So I've heard rumors that it may premiere on Friday, February 11th. So, which is actually the day after Discovery comes back. So we may have 2 Star Trek shows going on 2 different days. So, I mean, that's just a rumor. I've seen it, and I'm going like, don't take it with a grain of salt. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, if it doesn't happen, Discovery will Picard season 2 will come right after Discovery. So it will probably be like mid-March instead. So, which is okay. I'm willing to wait more time for Picard. I mean, Picard actually had during the 3rd season production just a couple weeks ago had a COVID outbreak.
Yeah.
Had a COVID positive outbreak with the Omicron variant, and they had a 4-day pause when they came back from the winter break. So it was that Monday through that Thursday of the winter break. After it came back from winter break, 50 crew members tested positive for COVID. Thankfully, Patrick Stewart was not one of the positive cases because we should be thankful for that because of his advanced age. He's more susceptible of getting severe illness if he were to be infected. So, because he's like 80 some odd years old.
I know it's mind blowing that that's how old he is. It's hard to believe.
He doesn't look that way.
I know.
He doesn't look that way at all. It's crazy. But he was not one of the positive cases and stuff like that. But it's all the stressful. It's not only they're not the only ones being affected by the pandemic. Obviously, most of the most of the shows that are in production who took a winter hiatus have put pauses on their production. Either they didn't come back at all, or they did come back and happened with Picard. Positive cases on the set, they decided to pause production. So that happened. I know that's happened with a few other shows on most other shows, like on CBS, mainly the FBI shows, and I meant the Chicago shows on NBC have had pauses in their production because of positive cases. So, but yeah,
we'll probably keep seeing that for a little while.
Yeah, we're going to see that for a little while longer. Just as the cases numbers are starting to peak somewhere else, but not peaking yet in Minnesota, but they're expecting to probably peak within the next 3 or 4 weeks. So, regarding that, and then it will start to drop off dramatically, and stuff like that, and that kind of thing. So that's what's happened with Picard. We don't know if it's coming back in February or not, but that's okay. If it pushes to March, that's fine, and stuff like that. Jonathan Frakes had spoken with Screen Rant. There's another bit of news. Jonathan Frakes had spoken with Screen Rant about his directorial assignments. This article came out after he directed the episode Stormy Weather for Discovery Season 4. I think it's the only episode he directed because of the COVID protocols and stuff like that, because Jonathan Frakes usually directs 1 or 2 episodes a season. I mean, for seasons 2 and 3, he directed 2 episodes. But in the first season, he directed Despite Yourself, which is actually one of my favorite episodes from the first season of Discovery. Because it goes to the mirror universe. And stuff like that. And stuff like that. So he talked to them and say like stuff like that. He is directing more episodes of Picard. We already knew that. Mm-hmm. He was directing season 3 episodes. And stuff like that. But unfortunately, he was not able to direct Strange New Worlds season 1 because of from the COVID protocols at their studio, which was different than Pinewoods, in Toronto, where Discovery is filmed. They're in Mississauga, which is a suburb of Toronto, and stuff like that. And it was different. He was not able to direct any episodes from the first season of Strange New Worlds. So, but he is on the short list for directing season 2 episodes, which are rumored to start in next month. But that could possibly be a little bit delayed because of Omicron. It's just a rumor that I've seen rumors that it will start up in mid-February to shoot season 2, and that's crazy that we're getting a season 2 of Strange New Worlds informally when we haven't seen any sort of trailer from them at all. It's probably just COVID. I'm not doubting that for a second.
Yeah.
That's probably why I haven't heard anything about Strange New Worlds since Star Trek Day. Regarding like any like sort of trailer about like seeing footage from the new episodes, footage of the Enterprise, and stuff like that. I can imagine it's probably due to the pandemic. So, and that's okay. I mean, but I have a feeling we'll probably hear more once Discovery is starting to wind down its 4th year. I think that's what I'm thinking. We'll probably get like something happening once Discovery comes back and ramps up again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I'm guessing is going to happen. We'll know more about once Discovery starts wrapping up its 4th year. So
4 years.
That's okay. Yeah, 4 seasons so far, and we haven't heard anything about a 5th season yet. That's probably just due to COVID too. But
yeah,
it's like, we'll probably get an announcement once Discovery is over.
Like, yeah, okay, I bet they're not really thinking about that. Too many fish to fry.
I mean, personally, I think it's not coming back. And that's personally how I'm feeling right now because of how they handled the international distribution of season 4. Kind of like put a nail in the coffin. I mean, and
yeah, I guess we'll see the reception of it once they finish wrapping up and see how it ends up, how much people are looking forward to seeing it, or if that still kind of follows them.
Yeah. So if it does happen, I mean, granted, I'll eat crow, not literally, but I've been saying it on social media. I know that I was expecting it when the virtual premiere I had back in November. That we're going to get a season 5 renewal. Nope, that didn't happen. But then, how they handle the international distribution of Discovery season 4 kind of put a nail in the coffin, saying like, okay, this is probably going to be it for Discovery. But granted, if they say 5th season to go, okay. That's fine with me. I'll be fine with it. And I have a feeling they probably won't cancel it anyway. I mean, they probably won't cancel it, but they probably say, okay, we're done with this one. But I don't think they're going to do that, considering that Discovery is actually one of the flagship shows of Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
So
that'd feel like kind of a bold move.
If not the flagship show.
Yeah.
Yeah, if not, one of the flagship shows, if not the flagship show. So that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. And speaking of other Star Trek shows, you have to watch them on Paramount Plus pretty soon, all of them, especially here in the United States, because Amazon Prime Video and Hulu have removed the pre-Kurtzman Trek shows off of their streaming services. So if you want to watch anything Star Trek in the United States, and if you haven't subscribed to Paramount Plus, I highly recommend, if you want to watch old Star Trek, you better do it now.
Yeah.
Because right now the only other non-Star Trek site that has any sort of Star Trek on it is Netflix, and here in the United States, and it just has The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. But I have a feeling that once that contract expires for both shows, you won't see them on Netflix anymore at all.
Yeah, so it can't come as a surprise. This is a forewarning.
Yeah, just a forewarning, everyone. And from what I understand, it's still going to air. Amazon Prime Video still has the international distribution rights to Picard, so we're not going to have that debacle again. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Knock on wood for that. So yeah. So Hulu and Amazon Prime Video have removed the pre-Kurtzman Trek shows off of their services, so, and stuff like that. So, all right, and we have some news about our podcast as well. So we kind of have, if you haven't noticed already, we have a new logo for the podcast. I mean, granted, it should have been like this before. Regarding the font of Twin Cities Trekkies, but thankfully it showed up on
change.
Yeah, exactly. It's a brand new year. We got a brand new logo. Just certain things changed, just a little tweaking here and there. That's all. A little tweak here and there. It's okay. So, and we do have some plans in the works to involve more people, especially since one of them has reached out to us, Computer Resume Podcast. I know that we should probably we can reach out to the other ones that if we follow on Instagram, A Strange New Pod, the Duras Sisters podcast. I know, and other things as well, stuff like that. So
I look forward to hearing from them if they are looking to join in and think that sounds cool. I'm more than happy to have them on.
Yeah, exactly. And we got more guests. I think we're gonna try to get more guests this year.
Yeah.
Because we had only 2 last year. We had your friend Tashale, and we had Bierko Katarina Ruzika. So so we're gonna try to have more guests on this year. As and next month is our 1 year anniversary. 1 year anniversary. Woo, woo.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Time
flies when you're having fun.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're you're gonna see a lot more interaction, I hope, with more Star Trek fans as the year progresses and stuff like that. And we have. The other character analyses, like our next episode after this one will be the one about Janeway, but definitely down the road, we're going to be doing a lot more other things, and it's going to be a lot of fun this second year of our podcast. So. All right. We got some feedback.
News be gone.
News be gone. Yeah, now we got some feedback for the first time in like forever. So we have Jim McMahon. So he is actually from the Twin Cities. So because I saw him once, I recognized him when I was one time at TC Trek Trivia here in Minneapolis. So I recognized you, Jim. I recognized who you were. So So he emailed us actually. So we got our first email feedback ever. Woo!
Yeah, new format. Neat.
Yeah. So howdy, Jim. He says, I just stumbled onto the podcast recently on iTunes, and so far I'm liking what I've heard. Just finished listening to episode 6, and as a fan of both retro games and Star Trek video games, thank you for talking about the retro Star Trek video games. My personal favorites are the Elite Force games about the Voyager crew. So
heck yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, and it was kind of cool. I responded back to him saying, like, good to hear from you, Jim. Next time we record, which is obviously now, your email will be included in our part of our feedback section. Glad to hear you enjoying the podcast. Looking forward to hearing more from you soon as you listen to more episodes. All the best, Wes MacKenzie.
Yeah,
So,
nice.
So I responded. Yeah, he emailed us. Yep, he's following us on both Facebook and Instagram. So, so thanks, Jim, for your feedback.
Yeah,
And we
thanks.
would definitely appreciate more feedback from you as you listen to the other 29 some odd episodes.
I was like, you got a little ways to go. Like, that's fun though. You got plenty of topics to listen to, all Trek related.
Yep. Yes, somehow, yes, in some way. Yes, yeah, and that gives me validation also that it is available on iTunes. Our Facebook, our podcast is available on iTunes. So if you are listening to us to iTunes, be sure to give us a 5-star rating and a written review of our podcast. That will actually help others find our show. So
yeah, got to play with that algorithm. Interaction is key in all the social media algorithms.
Yes, definitely. Yep. And so I know with more ratings and stuff like that, there'll be more people going like, hey, what's this show about? So but any feedback like that, can be read. So okay. Star Trek actors in other roles. Yeah, so I know that, I do this all the time regarding anything I watch. I go like, don't I know you from Star Trek? It's like, I have to like do a guessing. I think, okay, I'm getting there. It's like, oh, he was that in that.
Yeah, it's exciting. I play that game all the time. Fletcher and I watching something, and it even comes down to like voices. Where like Fletcher is really good at recognizing actors and their voices, even if he hasn't watched a lot of something. And I'm the same way. So we'll just be sitting there watching something and be like, "Isn't that the like Kate Mulgrews' voice, like Janeway's voice?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it is." I'm like, "That's pretty sweet." And then just being able to recognize somebody like, "Hey, that's the Doctor, isn't it?" And being like so excited to find out, like just seeing a random person where you're like, that's just super neat that you can recognize people where it's like, and it's always like in reference to Star Trek, like being like, hey, that person was on Star Trek, weren't they? Like, that's one of those guys, huh? Or watching Star Trek and being like, hey, he was on a show that I've watched, like after the fact. So it's cool to see them both in other, like not only within Star Trek playing multiple roles, but then being off screen in another show, like being like, hey, I remember you from Star Trek.
Yeah, and I hear this all the time from the celebrities too, of like the stars of Star Trek. I always mention like there was one time I mentioned this on one of our older shows. I mentioned that Patrick Stewart's been stopped in the street a few times, going like, and this like go like, you were Dr. Kirk from Star Wars, and they get it wrong, obviously, on so many levels. Yeah, so
or people recognize it from really random roles, or like, I mean, he's one of the few though too that had a pretty amazing career where like Professor X and Magneto, like having that whole thing in the Marvel universe, and then
Yep.
being on Star Trek and even getting to reprise his role as Picard. Like, it's
Hmm.
pretty sweet. I'm being a theater guy, so if you're really into theater, it's like, hey, I recognize him from random theater or doing voice work too, because his voice is iconic.
Yes. Yes. He's done a lot. Yeah, Patrick Stewart. We can definitely start with him. Yeah, definitely. Professor X in the X-Men films. Um, he actually got that role because of Star Trek, actually, because Bryan Singer was a huge Star Trek fan.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that. That's cool.
yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. He's a big Star Trek fan. So that's how he got the role of Professor Xavier in the X-Men films, was because of Star Trek. Um, I know that one point, yeah, he's also in the movie The Prince of Egypt.
Yeah.
That's a good movie. He's in that movie as his voice, obviously. Um, from what I understand, he wanted to be Mufasa in The Lion King, but he couldn't do it because of his Star Trek schedule.
Oh, it's too
Yeah,
bad.
it is too bad. I mean, it would have been interesting if he been Mufasa in the. I think it was. I think he was offered the role of Mufasa or Scar in the original Lion King movie, but I think he had to say no because of his Star Trek schedule. And because Whoopi Goldberg was the voice of Shenzi, the hyena, in that movie,
Yep.
the '94 movie, not the 2019 movie. I had to differentiate those two now. uh, but yeah, so he was. I think he was offered the role of Mufasa, but he had to say no. So it was kind of disappointing. And obviously, his voice is well known to Seth MacFarlane fans of Seth MacFarlane's shows.
Yeah.
He's voiced his own voice in like Family Guy a few times, even as Picard a few times.
And then in American Dad, he plays
Yep,
Avery Wallach.
the deputy director of the CIA.
Yeah. It also, one of my favorites was watching years ago, watching Nazca in the Valley of the Wind. He plays the voice of Lord Yupa in the English dubbed version. I thought that was super neat.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm like, that is totally his voice, huh? And then looked it up and it's like, oh, yep, nice.
And he's also the voice of the poop emoji in the Emoji movie.
Super random.
It was super random. My favorite role of him outside of Star Trek, other than like Professor Xavier or stuff like that, is that in The Simpsons. Actually, he is actually one of only a handful of Star Trek actors who have voiced characters on The Simpsons. He voiced the number one, ironically named number one, in the episode Homer the Great. It was an episode about the Stonecutters. He was the head of the Stonecutter club, and he was the head honcho of that and stuff like that. He's only a handful of Star Trek actors who have actually done roles on The Simpsons. The other ones are Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy, George Takei has done it a few times.
Yep.
And stuff like that. So, and yeah, but yeah, I liked him as number one in that episode of The Simpsons. And it's just being the head of the really secret organization called the Stonecutters. It's hilarious. I love it. He's hilarious. He's like, sorry, no homers. The way he says Homer is hilarious. And I think he came back about 20 years later too. He voiced a different character, but he has done two different characters on The Simpsons and stuff like that, and that's like that because his voice is so iconic. You see him like anything, you hear his voice, you're going like, isn't that Patrick Stewart?
Yeah.
And you go and you have to wait. You have to wait for the credits. You have to wait for the credits, and you go like, oh, that was him. That was him. That's how I felt about when I saw the poop because I knew he voiced the character of Poop in the Emoji movie. So, but he doesn't have a big role in the movie. It's kind of like sad, but it's okay. It happens.
Yeah, and then, besides him, it's like Leonard Nimoy's voice is iconic. George Takei's voice is iconic. Like hearing any of them doing, any sort of voice acting, like you hear any of them and you're like, that is definitely like my favorite was Leonard Nimoy doing like video game, like doing the Civ 4, and I always thought that was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, he did a lot of voice out over work.
That one
After,
weird game, Seaman or whatever, that
oh
super
yes,
strange game.
oh the
And
Seaman game for the
yeah,
Dreamcast. Yep, yep.
yeah,
Yeah, the reason why I know about that game is because of the Angry Video Game Nerd.
yep. That's
So
why I know it too, because of him. And I'm like, gosh, yeah, watching that, I was like, I can't believe this exists. Like, this is so weird. And why is it just,
why is it Mr.
why is it,
Spock?
yeah, why is Leonard Nimoy doing the voicing for this? It's just so random.
Yeah, yeah. So he did a lot of voiceover work for a lot of video games, especially later in his life. Um, yeah, especially Leonard Nimoy. Especially he was the Grand Marshal of the monorail in the episode The Simpsons. You know, he was and what Mayor Quimby mistakes him from one of the little rascals. So
Yeah.
yes, don't you know who I am? I think I do. Why aren't you one of the little rascals? And it's like, no. Oh
I,
god, and it's so funny about the episode. There's an episode called the Springfield Files, which is later on in the series. About 4 years later, he does a character that's kind of like what he did regarding In Search of kind of thing. It's like he's like a like hello, good evening kind of thing. You know, like kind of like Alfred Hitchcock, but not really. But kind of like in the In Search of show he did back in the 70s, and he did that, and it was kind of like a parody of that and Alfred Hitchcock and stuff like that. And it's kind of weird about that episode is that it also guest starred David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson from the X Files. So and
oh
he's also in that.
yeah.
He's in an episode as well, and it's so funny about like he's at the site where the supposed alien is, and this hot dog vendor goes like, "Hey Spock, what do you want on your hot dog?" And he says, "Surprise me." Just gives a bunch of relish on it.
That just makes me think too is like of like talking about the Simpsons, like Futurama as well, doing the
Yep,
voice
yep.
acting with them too,
Hmm.
being all over that show. Like it's
Yep,
insane how many. I mean that throws out to a lot of. I mean, Star Trek's illegal in the Futurama universe.
yep.
Already says enough
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. Star Trek's illegal. Yep, and yep. That yeah, definitely that episode of Futurama is actually a good episode of Futurama where no fan has gone before. So yeah, so that one started all the surviving original cast except for James Doohan and DeForest Kelly, who had passed away at that point. So, but everyone else is there and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a good episode. And the guy who wrote it was later became a producer and a writer on Enterprise. So
Oh, that's
David A.
neat.
Goodman, and now he's a producer and writer on The Orville. So
Oh, that's
yep,
cool.
yep, he's on The Orville as well. And speaking of The Orville, we have a lot of Star Trek alumni in there, both on
Yeah.
and off camera, both on and off the camera. First of all, Scott Grimes, who plays Malloy, he was actually had a bigger role in an episode of Next Generation, but most of his role got cut out. Um,
Oh.
he was he was part of a group of teenagers with Wesley Crusher in the episode Evolution, back in the third season. And his role was supposed to be a lot bigger, but most of his role got cut out due to time. So, but he's like there in the very last scene, like
Oh.
in 10 forward and stuff like that. He's with Wesley Crusher's with his friends and stuff like that, and and
I wonder how often
cut,
that happens to people, like doing all
yeah,
that work, and then it's like, sorry, we got to cut you for time, and it's like, what? And then I hope they
yeah,
get
and
maybe
he
some
was
specials and anything
yeah,
else.
he was like 15 at the time, 15, 16 years old. So yeah, definitely you got Scott Grimes in there. Obviously, Seth MacFarlane guest starred in a few episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, 2 episodes, stuff like that. And then one of his characters got yelled at by Trip Tucker.
Yeah.
An overexhausted Trip Tucker, I should say, like a
Yeah.
person who's yeah.
Well, now it's so funny because now I get you can go the opposite way. I wonder how many people recognize Seth MacFarlane like as somebody of like Star Trek or like the Orville over his other work. Like, because I mean, that's like, I mean, where you actually get to see his face because he's known for his voice work, but
Yeah.
and he's closely interacting obviously with like people like George Takei and Patrick Stewart and stuff. So I mean, it's kind of cool now to see how often now people will recognize him from real life acting in like the Orville or guest appearances in Star Trek instead of like other things that are pretty notable like Family Guy and American Dad. I think that's funny when people start recognizing like people for their prime work, like Sean Astin from Lord of the Rings, people being like, hey, it's that guy from Stranger Things. And it's like, oh no. Like, I want him to be recognized for, you mean Samwise Gamgee? Like, the main person of Lord of the Rings, like truly the hero.
Yeah, I know what you mean, totally. And I think the same thing about, regarding him and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of people who were on behind the scenes there on the Orville used to be working on Star Trek.
Yeah.
So
when it's cool to see two people like have like I don't know, like a rebirth of their acting career. Like I see that with George Takei a lot because he did a lot of voice work and stuff, but I've met a lot of people who don't actually like recognize him or know him from Star Trek. So they know him from things like Heroes or like just really random voice work, or, he's in Fresh Off the Boat. And the most recent one now is Hit Monkey, that show. It's like a Marvel show, and he's doing voice work for that. But it's just like where you actually like recognize it. It's like, oh, hey, he's still going strong, like doing stuff. Like he's so many projects.
Yeah, George Takei. Yep, definitely. Yep, and he is actually one of a few Star Trek actors who have voiced characters in Star Wars as well.
Yeah.
He voiced a few characters in the Clone Wars TV show, the 3D animated version, not the 2D animated version. So I know he did a few characters for the Clone Wars TV show. So he did that. I know he did that. He's one of those only few actors who did it. Brent Spiner's another one of those.
Yeah.
So Brent Spiner did that. But I can talk about Brent Spiner in a little bit. Yeah, but definitely George Takei. Yeah, definitely. Not a lot of people remember him from Star Trek anymore.
Yeah, because I feel like Hawaii Five-0 is another one that like randomly a few people from Star Trek are in that, and like it's just so random to see like the groups of people. Or like I think the other show that I remember seeing a lot of people who like guest starred throughout Star Trek is 24, where I'm like, wow, they have a lot of people from Star Trek on this show. Like,
yep. Yeah, they did. I think about that all the time. I see that all the time regarding like other shows I like to watch and going like, don't I know you from Star Trek?
They just like go to the Star Trek cast and they're like, do you guys just all want to come and be on this show? Like come on over. Just go pick through the Star Trek cast and crew and get some people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I know that if you wanted to have like a animated show or episode with like actors who are no longer with us from Star Trek, you can pull like an audio clip from a certain episode and put it in their character. I don't mean to bring this up, Kenzie. You really gotta watch this episode of Prodigy.
I need
this. Yeah, this one they used. I'm just gonna say this right now. I'm gonna say it. They used archive audio footage from Nichelle Nichols, Renee Auberjonois, James Doohan, and Leonard Nimoy in that episode of Prodigy, because the main character does his version of the Kobayashi Maru.
That's super cool.
And apparently, according to the computer, you can do like customize your crew. Well, he had Uhura and Odo and Scotty and Scotty and Spock and Dr. Crusher.
Nice.
And the only person who did any sort of voice work, like new voice work for that particular part of the Prodigy episode, was Gates McFadden.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, it was. Yeah, she did her own voice,
That's
but
sweet.
the other ones were archive audio from a whole host
Well, that's
of
awesome.
episodes.
I like that, like that they could actually utilize like archived like voice and audio because I feel like that's
Yeah,
better. I mean, like I don't mind people like doing voices for people, but it's even more special if you can just find their voice in the past.
yeah, and that's what they did. That's what they did for that episode of Prodigy. It was amazing. I was like, what? They pulled. I watched the episode, and I was playing a guessing game of where in the franchise they pulled that audio from. Like some of Spock's lines came from Balance of Terror, and and stuff
Yeah,
like
it'd be
that.
interesting to see like if they list that somewhere like, oh yeah, these are the episodes it's from, or you just can go through and like figure it out yourself and then write it all down. And be like,
Yeah,
I know where you guys pulled this all from.
yeah. Like one of the lines from Uhura came right out of the Wrath of Khan. So, but I recognized it right away.
Yeah.
But like I hear something on the Stretch channel. Yeah, that came right out of the Wrath of Khan. But but the fine folks over at Strange New Pod actually had put together a video of where exactly they came from.
Oh, that's cool.
It's an amazing video, and I recognize some of the other lines too from Spock. They were also from The Enemy Within, too, from the very first season of the original series. So about being a captain and you can't show weakness and stuff like that. And stuff like that. I knew that came from The Enemy Within because that actually is one of my favorite original series episodes from the first season is The Enemy Within. So and stuff like that. That was great. It was just mind blowing that they were able to get all that footage done, all that audio footage into like animated form for the people who are no longer with us, for the actors who are no longer with us. And they did a little dedication thing at the end of the episode saying to the people of Leonard Nimoy, James Doohan, and Rene Auberjonois who dared us to go boldly go. So stuff like that. So I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, but Brent Spiner. I want to bring up Brent Spiner now. Obviously, he's done a lot of other voice work and stuff like that. I mean, granted, before Star Trek, his best known role was on a role on Night Court. He played this like hillbilly person.
I couldn't even imagine that. I've never seen that. That's so funny.
I've seen the video of him. It says Brent Spiner in the role that made him famous prior to Star Trek. And he was like this hillbilly dumb person, dumb hillbilly hick. Stuff like that. And, it makes sense he did that because, he's originally from Texas. So, you would never know it, but yeah, he's originally from Texas. So, but he did that. That was before Star Trek. And obviously when Star Trek came around, a lot more roles came to him. There's an episode of The Simpsons that I really enjoy watching in which, Mr. Burns replaces all the workers except for Homer with this robot workforce, and they're all voiced by Brent Spiner.
So awesome.
It's hilarious. It's like, I watched the episode when it first aired back in 2015 or 16 or something like that. It's like a more recent episode and stuff like that, but it's hilarious. He's talking, it's Homer and Brent Spiner talking for most of the episode. And like this, yeah, I failed to see this, or he talks like exactly like Data. So, and the robots like talking like Data. So it's great.
Super cool.
It's super awesome. It. Yeah, and that's something like that. But obviously, outside of those two things, the best known role I've seen him in is Dr. Brackish Oaken in the Independence Day films.
Yep.
Yep. The crazy wacko Area 51 doctor. Yeah.
I,
I guess
I
he was. I guess he was modeled after the hairstyle and stuff like that was based off of the visual effects producer of Independence Day.
oh
From what,
really?
yeah,
It's
and
funny.
stuff like yeah. So
I was
I
trying to
like
think
I
like
like him.
the last like random person I saw in something where it was kind of surprising was I was watching the show Dickinson, and Robert Picardo is in that
Oh
as one of the dad's friends, and I was just like, hey, it's the emergency medical hologram. And like
yeah,
almost like couldn't recognize him, but just like I mean I instantly recognized him right when I saw him. I was like, that's super cool. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
Kate Mulgrew as the cat in Infinity Train doing the voice because her voice is just so iconic. And I'm
Hmm.
like, that's just, and then of course her in Orange is the New Black. I think that's what's funny is having people now watch like something like Voyager or see Prodigy, and they're like, isn't that the lady from Orange is the New Black? And it's like she's become so iconic in that role that I
Hmm.
think if people aren't in the Star Trek world or know much about Voyager, because I think when people think Star Trek, they often just think Kirk, occasionally Picard, but I feel like Cisco and Archer and Janeway are all kind of like forgotten about, or a lot of not well
Hmm.
known outside of the Star Trek community. So people will be like, if they see a snippet of her in Voyager or snippets from Prodigy, even like animated, it's like that's what's her face from Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, Red Reznikoff.
Yes, Red.
Yeah, Red. And she never got an Emmy nomination for playing Janeway during the 7 years she played her character, but she got an Emmy Award nomination for playing Red Reznikoff in the Orange is the New
Yeah.
Black. So that's saying something about her craft as an actress and
Yes.
stuff like that. And you know about like Kate Mulgrew and stuff like that. I've seen her other stuff as well, not just Orange is the New Black and Star Trek, Voyager, and Prodigy, but also I've seen like a lot of her other stuff and older stuff. Like she was Boston City Councilperson Janet Eldridge in Cheers.
Yeah.
Um, yep, she did that. She was one of Sam Malone's girlfriends for like 3 episodes in a row, and stuff like that. And obviously, she started her career on Ryan's Hope, the old soap opera in the '70s, and stuff like that, and stuff like that. I mean, outside of like, yeah, Kate Mulgrew, yeah, definitely. Her voice is so iconic. She sounds just
Yeah.
like our voice because it's like a Midwestern accent.
Yeah,
And
and she has this very like smooth, like lower alto voice, and it's just
yes,
so recognizable. And that was just so it was just so funny when Fletcher and I were watching Infinity Train, which is animated by someone here from Minnesota. It takes place starting in like St. Paul, Minnesota. I thought that was
mm,
super neat because I was like, is that St. Paul is in like Minnesota, St. Paul? And then like this whole storyline starts up, written by a guy here from Minnesota, and right away one of the first characters is this cat, and it's just instantly I'm like, oh, that's Janeway talking. Like that's totally her. Like
yeah,
instantly in her voice I'm like, yeah, that's her. It's awesome.
yeah, and that's great. That we get to hear all these like Star Trek actors and stuff like that in other roles and stuff like that. Robert Picardo, you mentioned. I mean, I've seen stuff that he did prior to Star Trek, like the Wonder Years, the original Wonder Years television show. I should say the original one because there's a remake out right now on ABC.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
know that.
yep, the original Wonder Years TV show with Fred Savage. He was the coach. I forgot his last name now, Coach something. But then also, if you ever seen Home Improvement, he is Joe the Meat Man Morton.
Oh yeah.
Yep, he was there. He did that prior to Star Trek, actually, just
Yeah,
prior to
it's like
Star Trek.
I don't think that I barely remember watching Home Improvement as a kid. It's like something you'd like half watch while you were like doing something like, oh, I'm gonna play with my dolls while I put this on TV.
Yeah, so he was Joe the Meat Man Morton in that prior to Star Trek, just prior to Star Trek. Yeah, and obviously the Orville um, playing was his Alara Katan's dad.
Yep.
Uh, and it was awesome. They had the scene with him and John Billingsley together, the two Star Trek doctors going at it. So, and yeah, that's great. I mean, I do this all the time with this whole thing with Star Trek and actors.
I always
So
think it's funny, like then doing the reverse, like watching other shows and then seeing them guest star in Star Trek, which I always think is super
yeah.
cool. Like I saw that with like Kurtwood Smith, like I guess like I
Yep.
just know him from that 70s show RoboCop and like 24 and stuff, but you just see
Yep.
him like you rewatch episodes of Star Trek and it's like, hey, wait a minute, he's been in here like a few times, like he's multiple times guest starred as like just a random guest appearance, and
Yep.
it's like 3 or 4 different times he's done that. And same with James Cromwell, who plays Zephram Cochrane. Like I rewatch episodes and it's like, wait a minute, like
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize he's played other characters besides Zephram. And then I just recently
Hmm.
saw him in Succession. I've been watching that, and he's like the estranged brother in that show. And I'm like, hey, it's Zephram Cochrane.
Yeah, I see this. I think the same way about James Cromwell all the time, because I've seen him in other shows besides Star Trek, and I'm going like, don't I know him from Star Trek?
Yeah.
Like, he was in the second season of American Horror Story,
Yep.
uh, American Horror Story Asylum. He was in that show. He was a creepy dude in that show. I mean, granted, I'm not a big horror fan, but
Yeah.
I've seen a few clips of him playing a really creepy doctor on YouTube for American Horror Story.
He's also a 24 as well. And I'm like,
24.
okay.
Yep. Oh, don't forget, he was the farmer in the Babe movies.
Yeah. Like, there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah, that's another thing from my childhood I remember is watching those Babe movies. He was the farmer in that movie, those movies. I don't think he had a name, but
Yeah. I don't really
I don't think he had a name in those movies. I mean, granted, I haven't seen those movies in years,
Yeah,
but
I don't think I've watched it since a kid. Like had them on VHS, and my sister was like obsessed with them. So I'd like kind of watch them with her, but it was almost like the principal thing of like because my sister loves them. I'm like, nope, I don't like them then.
yeah, I know what you mean. Totally understand. Yeah, and then he was actually, I think, a senator in. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Species movies. The Species, yeah, he was in the second one. So,
Nice.
he played the father. He was a senator to the main villain, who ended up being the main villain. The guy, the main commander of the space mission to Mars, in that movie. So, he ended up playing that character's father, who was a U.S. senator. So and stuff like that. He does a lot of like politicians and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, ER too. The show
Yep.
ER. He plays that priest who has lupus.
Yep.
Yeah, and
But I'll just always
yeah,
forever recognize him. I'm like, whenever I point him out, I'm always like, hey, it's Zephram Cochrane.
yeah, but I like watching that arc he's in for ER all the time because it's a really sad way. It's a really sad kind of thing.
Yeah.
But affair. But it's really kind of interesting. We got this Catholic priest who has lupus. So he plays him like 4 episodes, and he dies before Christmas.
Yeah.
So from lupus. So and
it's
funny.
Yeah,
you said Kurtwood Smith too. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy that one of his roles predated that 70s show. 2 of his roles did, I think, or 3. Yeah, I think 3 of his shows. 3 of his predated that 70s show for Star Trek. For Star Trek roles before that 70s show. The president of the Federation in Star Trek 6, Anorex in Voyager, and Thrax in DS9. So, yeah, and then he did an episode of Lower Decks. I know that. I don't remember which one, but he did. He did one of the characters in that one. I think it was the first season. He did one of those characters. Stuff like that.
So cool.
I'm kind of curious to see what happens if he participates in the sequel show for that 70s show on Netflix.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's I'm just trying to think of. There's somebody else I'm thinking of that's been in a few times, but I only recognize it after watching Daniel Kim.
Oh
him
yeah,
from
yep,
Lost. Yeah,
yep.
that's I was like trying to think of who it was that he's been in a couple episodes. He's in Enterprise, I remember, but there was another episode that I'd
Voyager.
seen. Yeah, where I was like, oh hey, like after the fact, like I watched Lost and everything, and
Yeah,
so like then seeing him in that, I'm like, oh, he's been in here like twice then, like
yeah.
just random.
Yep, he did a Voyager and Enterprise episode. So
And then the
yeah,
Hawaii
and
Five
then
O as well,
yep,
like
yep, Hawaii Five O. Yep, definitely. And I think he did it. He bought the rights to one of the shows is now airing. I think I don't remember what the show it is called, but he bought the rights to one show. And he had, I think it was CBS who produced it. I don't remember, but it was a show that he bought the rights to, like, I don't know, after Hawaii Five O and stuff like that. And I forgot the name of the show now, but it's bothering me now. I know it was like he was one of the executive producers because he bought the rights. I forgot the name of the show now. It's like
the Good Doctor.
Yes, that one.
Okay, I was like, I feel like that's
yes, that's the one. That's the one. He bought the rights from the original because it's originally South Korean show.
Yeah,
I think it was.
Yeah, it is.
And yeah, and he bought the rights to the U.S. rights to it. And yeah, it's the Good Doctor. Thank you. Oh, it's bothering the living crap out of me.
Yeah,
I know
it's hard when you can't remember stuff. It's like annoying.
It comes to you later going, oh, I knew it. Feel the same way about Jeopardy all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's fascinating to see all these actors and other roles and stuff like that. Don't forget about Jeffrey Combs.
I was going to say, I was like Vaughn Armstrong and Jeffrey Combs having like the most like repeated character, like like just showing up. It's like, hey, wait a minute, that's Jeffrey Combs. Like,
yep, and he was in Lower Decks. He's the.
I was like, heck yeah.
Agamus. Yeah. He was Agamus in the season 2 episode. Yep, and he enjoyed doing it. And he was also about voice work. Don't forget about the Star Trek voices for video games as well. The video games for the Star Trek video games, at least. I know, like some of the Star Trek actors have voiced their own characters for Star Trek Online, and that includes the new cast as well, the newscast as well. Because I know Sonequa Martin Green has done voice work for that show, for that game. So has Mary Wiseman. So they have done voice work for Star Trek Online and stuff like that. It's really interesting. They've done that, and also Jason Isaacs has done it, and he's now in that show Good Sam on CBS.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, I've always admired Jason Isaacs for his work.
Yeah,
and it was not just because of Harry Potter.
I liked him because he was in the Peter Pan movie.
Yep, that too. Yep, he was Captain Hook in that movie.
And Mr. Darling, he was also the dad, which I thought was so funny. Like both.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, is that supposed to be the parallel? Like that it's just like the dad and Captain Hook are played by the same person.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Yep, and yeah, not just for Harry Potter either. Lucius Malfoy and Malfoy, but you got also Colonel Tavington in The Patriot for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good movie. And you also got Rene Auberjonois in that movie as the priest who joins the militia and stuff like that, and dies in the attempt of trying to kill Tavington. So, I mean, when I watched that. Yeah, when I first watched that movie and I saw Rene Auberjonois' character die, I'm going like, you just killed Odo. How dare you?
Yeah, I didn't know that till after the fact, because with all the makeup, it was like so hard for me to actually like recognize them, and then it's like, oh, that's Odo. Nice.
Yeah, and it's crazy about him is that he did a lot of voice work. About him, Rene Auberjonois, not just for Star Trek. He did voice Odo for a couple of a few Star Trek games, but he also was in Boston Legal.
Oh yeah,
and so went alongside William Shatner.
Yeah, go and hang out with Shatner, I guess.
Yeah, but also he did the voice. This is actually interesting. Actually, is that the original '90s version of Rugrats? Charlotte Pickles' assistant is named Jonathan. Jonathan was, especially in like the ones prior to its first cancellation, in the early mid '90s, he was voiced by him.
Oh,
yeah, and I'm going like, that was interesting because I was like, you know, I never would recognize his voice. I mean, because I recognize him as this like really gruff voice, you know, like Odo voice, you know, he kept on doing that even after he stopped playing Odo, you know, doing that gruff voice, like,
yeah. Well, now I'm like, I want to kind of look up because I'm like, I feel like I've like heard him in something random. Now that you're like talking about him doing voice work, I didn't really know that, and I'm like,
yeah, he did a lot of kids shows. Yeah,
the Snorks. What the heck? I'm like, I didn't know that he did voice work on the Snorks.
Yeah, he did a lot of kids shows. Not only just like we just mentioned the Snorks, but also like Rugrats and other shows as well. And I look at the credits, going like, when I first watched an episode of Rugrats with him as Jonathan, Charlotte Pickles' assistant, and it says Rene Auberjonois, and I was like, what? That was his voice?
Yeah. Now I want to watch it just to like hear it. Be like, what the heck? That's awesome.
Yeah. But I see him in other things as well. Like, I've seen the original MASH movie from 1970. The original Father Mulcahy. So in that movie, I've seen MASH and stuff like that. Yep. It's a shame he's been dead for 2 years now.
Yeah.
So sad. Yeah. Yeah. So it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. Yeah. Wow. And if I think we're about wrap this one up. Any final thoughts?
If you have a favorite character that you've seen in Star Trek outside of the show, or some of your favorite characters who have guest starred in Star Trek, you should let us know, because that would be really cool to hear if there's any other exciting ones that people have seen that they were surprised by.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I know that we've missed a lot. I know we've.
Oh yeah, there's tons. I'm like, it is. You can rewatch an episode and probably be surprised by who's guest starring it, being like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, and you go like, and some of those my final thought, some of those guest stars in Star Trek, some of them, it was like roughly their first or second role ever in Hollywood. Like for example, Annie Wershing, who will be playing the Borg Queen in season 2 of Picard, her first ever role was on Enterprise. So, and now she's become a somewhat of a big star herself and stuff like that. Being on Star Trek originally, and now was like on 24 and other things as well, things like that. You got to think about some of those actors who got their start on Star Trek are now big time stars themselves in their own right. So, all right. So episode 35 next week, we'll be talking about Janeway. Our fourth character analysis, because we kind of shied away from that for the last few months. We kind of get back to it. So it's okay though, because it's been our schedules and stuff like that. It's been the holidays, and other things have come up and stuff like that. So we've been trying to do it every month, but certain things happened last year, and trying to get back to a more monthly schedule regarding doing that, because this will be our fourth one, and we're probably going to include some Prodigy, who knows, but mostly it's going to be about her analysis from being captain of Voyager. So until next week, take care and live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.